how disappointing was Kayshon Boutte at the NFL Combine? I could not get over the numbers that Kayshon Boutte put down over the weekend in Indianapolis. Not only did Kayshon, without question, lose out on first, second, third round draft pick type status and money, he may have moved himself to the back end of the draft and raised a ton of red flags. His numbers over the weekend were astoundingly bad. And I think that, look, I don't have to give any type of qualifier here or, anything to give our allegiance. I mean, we love Kayshon here. He has been so kind to our show. Right when we got started, he was a guy that we really had a relationship with and signed kind of a little miniature NIL deal with, and he was coming in every Sunday and was awesome for us. And you knew during that time the reason why, when we talked as a staff, when we were putting the kind of thought behind, hey, we got to get this show off the ground. What can get it going? Getting some name recognition behind it, getting some guys behind it. Let's go get Kayshon Boutte and BJ Ojulari. And that was what we did last year, and we're able to get some, good information and access. And those guys were great to us and still fantastic to us. And that's why I was just really, man, I was heartbroken to see Kayshon's numbers. I mean, someone who at certain points of his college career was arguably the best offensive player in the sport. I mean, he was definitely the best freshman offensive player his freshman season, without question, for the last 6 games of the season, right? I mean, if you go back and turn on the film, he became a true threat his freshman year at the back half, where if you weren't accounting for him, he'd set the school record like he did against Ole Miss. I mean, he was unguardable. And then it carried over to his sophomore season, where if you were out in Pasadena, if you remember that game, the stretch in which he got going, I mean, there was a feeling there that he could score every time he touched it. I mean, I think he was scoring like 1 out of every 8 times he caught the ball for a certain point of his sophomore season. It was silly. I mean, it was video game numbers. It was without question that this guy is going to be a high round draft pick and a Sunday producer immediately. I mean, on the heels of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, this guy was, in the same class, it felt like, or at least on his way to be there. I mean, he felt like a bona fide Biletnikoff contender going into his junior year. He was a unanimous preseason All-American on all of the lists, and he was a Biletnikoff watch list guy going in. He was also one of the top wide receivers in college football. Now, 2 lower body, foot, ankle surgeries later, right, which is different for a guy that counts on his bounce, counts on his spring, counts on his speed, is going to be a setback. But I don't think anybody anticipated the type of setback he had in his junior year, where it was evident from the start that it was going to be a struggle. And I thought he really kind of did himself a lot of good by turning into a leader on that team, or at least a public leader. I don't think that you can manufacture what Kayshon did in the locker room and from a leadership standpoint this past season. Even though he was a quiet guy for the first couple of years he was on campus, he still had to have those traits and characteristics that he had coming through in his junior year, because it looked so natural for him. It looked so easy to be a leader, a guy that stood up in the locker room in Gainesville, a guy that would lead, kind of down to the student section and keeping the crowd involved. And, when teammates needed some inspiration or some pick-me-up, Kayshon was seemingly right there at the right time. I mean, a guy that was kind of helping himself as far of, you knew he had the physical attributes, but you wondered if he had the leadership qualities and the buy-in and the engagement and was a good teammate. And I thought he showed that. That's why going into last week, I think we talked about it, Kayshon had the biggest to gain. He also had the biggest to lose, right? Because I think the last thing that you saw on Kayshon of him taking a crossing route against the national champs and going 53 yards in the SEC title game made a lot of people say, well, hold on now. If he's got the leadership quality and he still has this, he can still do this. Well, maybe he's back into the conversation of a potential first-round pick, of not only a first-round pick, a high first-round pick. If he can physically move like that and he's bought in. And then he showed up in Indianapolis and just, he went bankrupt. He lost so much money over the past couple of days that it's probably tough to even quantify. I can't believe what I'm looking at when I see his numbers. Really. In the 40-yard dash, he ran times of 4.67 and 4.5. He also finished second to last in wide receivers in the broad jump, which was 9 feet. When is a wide receiver ever going to use a broad jump in a football game? Never. But what they're judging and what they're looking for right there is explosion, is some type of physical burst of getting, out off of the break, getting off the line of scrimmage, making a guy miss and being able to explode and get up the field. He finished 39th among all wideouts in the combine in 10-yard splits and dead last in the vertical leap. He jumped 29 inches. Stu and I were talking, and no shit. I jumped 34 my junior year, which 33. Was kind of like, at the high end of our class, but by no means the best on the team.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, they had guys that were jumping higher than that. They had, 29 inches, Coach? 29 inches. I can't believe that. Like, there's no way that he was jumping 29 inches last weekend, right? The weekend before the combine, somebody had to test him on the vertical leap if they were going to allow him to go to the biggest job interview of his life and sign up for that. Like, for example, Jaquelin Roy went to the combine and he only participated in drills that it looked as if he was going to feel comfortable being involved in. Like Jaquelin Roy, all he did is he entered into the 3-cone drill, the 20-yard shuttle, and the bench press. And he came out and had a really good weekend. Pretty good weekend. Bench press 225 30 times. Whoever was telling Kayshon, these are the drills that you need to sign up for, and this is what you need to go take part in the biggest job interview in your life, should have been fired on Friday.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm not playing around. Whoever gave him the advice, because there's no way that he just jumped 29 inches for the first time over the weekend. He had to be at some testing facility going through these measurables, and somebody had to say, yo, if he's jumping 29, do not allow him to take part in the vertical leap test next week in Indianapolis. If he's running 4.5, don't let him run next weekend. Let's get him ready for pro day at the end of March.
Or if he runs 4.50 on his first attempt, call him and tell him don't run again.
If he's going to jump 9-10 in the broad jump, and off of past numbers that's not going to be good, pull the plug on him going into those drills. I'm not making excuses for Kayshon. The fact that those are his numbers are inexcusable. Really, what the hell have you been doing? 29 inches? I got to really believe that there is middle schoolers jumping 29 inches. I've seen 8th graders this year on just the Catholic League circuit that are slapping the backboard. He can't even dunk a basketball. This guy was taking crossing routes against SEC opponents to the house every time he touched it 2 years ago. Those numbers are astounding. Those are playing him out of the draft, not out of the first round. Those will play you out of like the first 2 days. This is Kayshon Boutte. I mean, 2 weeks ago, potentially, I thought he was a first-round pick. I mean, this is. I can't think of a prospect that has had that type of showing on that stage. I mean, somebody had to know that was going to happen. If not even the prospect, if not Kayshon, I mean, you got to know your body. You got to be saying, hey, man, I'm not feeling it today. I'm not going to be able to do this. Or in the lead up saying, hey, look, I'm not built for this test stuff. Just turn the film on and go out there on the field and do what you do good. You know, I mean, like I said, I mean, there's all types of examples here. I mean, B.J. Ojulari had a really good combine. He didn't run. He didn't lift. He just jumped because he knew physically, I'm a freak. And this is the stuff you want to see, and I'm good at this stuff. He jumped 32 and a half, and he jumped 10.6 in the broad. 32 and a half was 6th overall best at his position. Rush defensive end. Think how many athletes showed up at Indianapolis over the last couple of days that were defensive ends that looked athletic. The 6th best vertical leap out of all of them was B.J. Ojulari, and he knew he was going to shine there. He knew he was going to be good. Whoever told Kayshon, yo, man, yeah, go up there and run and jump, and didn't have him tested and didn't have him confident that he was going to be able to pull that off should have been fired already, and Kayshon better have the best month of his life over the next 3.5 weeks. LSU's Pro Day just became his Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan Addison, the other guy from USC, ran 4.55.
Coach, that's fine.
But his tapes, you know,
nobody's gonna slaughter all of the records. Look, and I was listening to Dominic Foxworth, who was a guy out of Maryland who's up at ESPN, covers the NFL. He was on an ESPN Daily podcast talking about his his combine. He ran 4.39 at his combine, jumped like 44 inches. He had gotten himself prepared for the combine. He's like, look, it's not always there's guys that are slow that are not going to test well, but that people are just going to judge the film and they're going to draft you off of that. And if you turn on Kayshon's film, it's inarguable. Good. You know, I mean, there's one season that outlies two, and there's still plays that you can cherry pick out of that third year that you can say, okay, he still has it.
He can still play.
You know, he can still play. But the most alarming part for me when I was watching this was who allowed him to sign up for this? I mean, at this level, there is so many layers of people making decisions for people like Kayshon Boutte that this should never even touch his brain. You know, of like, what drills do you want to partake in the NFL Combine? Boutte should never even be evaluated on that. There should be a team of people where he's been working out that say, hey, look, here's what you do really good, and here's the things that you're struggling in. There's no way we can allow you to sign up for the vertical jump at the Combine next week. There's no way we're going to allow you to run next week, but we're going to put you on the field and allow you to run routes and catch the ball or whatever he does strong. You have to, I mean, like, you know, that was astounding to see 29 inches in the vertical leap. I'm telling you, there's 8th graders all over the city jumping over 29 inches. I mean, that is astounding that is the numbers that Kayshon put down at the NFL Combine, both from his standpoint of that's where he is physically going into this process, and whoever his team of people is around him allowed him to get on that stage and fail at such a obvious level. I mean, there's no way that was the first time that people were like, oh, wait, he jumped 29 inches. You're like, yeah, you dumbass. He was jumping 29 4 days ago. What is he doing here? Why are you letting him do this? Why is he running? I mean, like, what made it worse was, like, somebody asked him before, like, what do you expect to run? He said 4.3.
So that probably tells you that he probably ran before and ran a 4.3. And then he got to the combine. I guess it was just.
Which could be explained. If that's the fact, when you clocked 4.3 in Arizona, Florida, wherever you're working out, Dallas, and you got to the big stage and you folded a little bit, that's fine. You better run 4.3 at LSU then.
Yeah.
You better run 4.3 at that pro day.
And you better jump over a 30.
And you better jump over 35, man. Like, you need to look at the numbers or just stay away from it. But I mean, the damage is done in some departments. I mean, that broad jump and the vertical leap, he's not going to be able to overcome that if he can't perform higher than that.